February. We now come to the 10-minute rule motion, social energy tariff. Marion Fellows.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that leave be given to bring in a bill to require the Secretary of State to publish proposals for a social energy tariff. During the autumn statement in 2022, this government committed to developing a new approach to consumer protection in energy markets, to consider the best options, including options such as social tariffs. This commitment has been repeated multiple times since, including by the Prime Minister. In April 2023, the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero reiterated that pledge by promising to consult on a social energy tariff in the summer of 2023. However, despite multiple commitments and to the frustration of many, a consultation has never materialised. And as we are now in February 2024, there is a significant risk that no new protections will be in place this year. All the while, low-income and disabled households have struggled to heat their homes over the festive period and during the cold snap in January, and winter isn't over yet. That's why I'm bringing forward this bill today in an attempt to fight for protections for the most vulnerable in society, whilst the government continues to disregard the very real and immediate concerns of many with their continued inaction on this matter. The great need for a social energy tariff is best demonstrated by the wide and varied support for its implementation. Disability groups, debt advice groups, politicians across the spectrum, consumer groups, local authorities, housing providers, Ofgem and even energy companies are in favour. There is such a united front on this vital issue, and this makes it even more surprising that the UK Government have failed even to hold the consultation they promised. They have continued to bury their head in the sand, despite the fact that National Energy Action, Energy Action Scotland, Age UK, Scope, Citizens Advice, Money Saving Expert and 150 other organisations, as well as MPs, wrote to the Prime Minister in September to call for a consultation on a social energy tariff as promised. And now we are into 2024 and the situation is catastrophic for low-income households. I'd like to thank the many organisations that provided briefings on this topic, both for my debate in November last and once again today. Mr. Speaker, you may ask what a social energy tariff is, and admittedly, there are many different organisations and groups which have some slight variations in their approach to such a tariff. However, in its most basic form, which is universally agreed upon, it is a system of targeted support through a reduction in energy bills for vulnerable, low-income and disabled households in response to incredibly high energy bills. As 1 in 3 households will spend more this winter on energy bills than they did last winter, and the figure is closer to half for the poorest households, the need for a social energy tariff can't be stressed enough. Citizens Advice research shows that energy bills are 61% higher than in 2021. Other research suggests that high energy bills will become the new normal for the rest of the decade, highlighting the desperate need for more meaningful long-term support. When I held a debate on this topic in November, I was heartened by the cross-party support and atmosphere in Westminster Hall as members from across the political spectrum presented a united front on this matter, each raising the need for longer-term targeted support for the most vulnerable households. After this, I was immediately disheartened by the lack of meaningful response from the Minister. And now, over 2 months on from this debate and 14 months on from the Government's initial call for a consultation, we're no further along. Those on the Government benches highlight that energy bills have fallen from last year, but this does not paint a picture of reality for many. Even though we are told that the energy market has stabilised, bills remain sky high, and a winter 23-24 is projected to be much worse due to the huge levels of energy debt accrued last year. Ofgem and Citizens Advice research shows that energy debt is at the highest level ever. Ofgem CEO Jonathan Brearley has said, "We think there is a case for examining with urgency the feasibility of a social tariff." In the absence of an energy bill to support scheme this winter, many people have to choose again between heating and eating. Some conditions require the constant charging of essential life-saving equipment, such as oxygen concentrators or feeding pumps. It is dreadful that in the UK in 2024, some households have been forced to self-disconnect. How for many disabled households, this simply isn't possible, as they would not survive. A coalition of charities, Age UK, Scope, Fair by Design, MENCAP, MND Association and SENS warn that the cost of living crisis still is adding huge pressures to household finances, with millions facing the dilemma of how they're going to pay their energy bills this year. Currently, around 1 in 8, 12% of households in the UK, the equivalent of 3.4 million households, are experiencing fuel poverty this winter. Marie Curie shared with me the thoughts of Rihan, who is terminally ill. People with terminal illnesses feel the cold so much more than the healthy and need to heat their homes. People with terminal illnesses still have mortgage or rent and bills to pay, and there are no specific benefits offered to help terminally ill people, so that they have to carry on working with debilitating symptoms. I live with incurable terminal cancer. My monthly heating bill is currently more expensive than my mortgage. A social energy tariff is the best way forwards. It must be additional to the warm home discount and the default tariff price cap. It must be targeted to the neediest and go beyond the benefit system. National Energy Action estimates that approximately 2/3 of fuel-poor households do not receive any social security payments. All eligible consumers should be auto-enrolled using suppliers' existing data and/or data shared by the Department for Work and Pensions, and the tariff must reduce costs for consumers to pre-crisis levels. We all know that it will cost money. It's essential that the costs are met in a progressive manner. If not, there's a risk that the tariff will create a significant cliff edge where those who narrowly miss out will be much worse off. National Energy Action, Citizens Advice and Centrica all say that an energy social tariff should be funded by general taxation to ensure the greatest level of fairness. If that can't be done, low-income households on the fringes of support must be exempted from paying towards the social tariff. The Government have said that the new round of oil and gas licensing would raise money to reduce bills. A social tariff would have numerous economic benefits. It would also offset the costs, as illnesses brought on by having a cold and damp home cost the NHS between £500 million and £1.4 billion a year. Further, increased spending power could boost local economies, more money spent on our high streets. Millions of the most vulnerable households and organisations spanning all civil society are shouting from the rafters for the implementation of a social energy tariff, and the Government cannot and must not continue to bury their heads in the sand. A society, Mr. Speaker, should be measured on how it treats its most vulnerable, and this Government, through inaction, are continuing to fail the most vulnerable households right across the country. There were 4,950 excess winter deaths last year in the UK, down to people living in cold and damp houses. This is why we need this bill. Millions of people cannot wait any longer, and that is why I'm asking for support on this motion today.
That the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. The question is that the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill, As many are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Who will prepare to bring in the bill?
Mr Speaker, Peter Aldous, John MacDonald, Kat Smith, Owen Thompson, Kirsten Oswald, Alison Thulis, Patricia Gibson, Dave Dugan, David Linden, Alan Smith, Drew Hendry and myself.
Marion Fellows.
Thank you. Social Energy Tariff Bill.
Second reading what day?
Friday, 15th of March.
Friday, the 15th of March. Okay, no problem. Right. Before we begin